Okay. Think starting to see people still joining the meeting, so I will give it about another minute before we start. But first, I wanted to make sure that everyone can hear my audio. So if there's
Steve,
any,
this is Bob Brand. I can hear you loud and clear.
that's great. That's great. Thanks. And you can see the presentation.
Yes, sir, I can.
All right. Thanks, Bob. Okay. Sorry, I'm just closing a few windows. Make sure I have all the bandwidth that's needed. Okay. Good evening. I am Steve Waller, a senior planner in the Fairfax County Department of Planning and Development's Planning Division. And here with me tonight are some other staff from the from different agencies Fairfax in Fairfax County who have been involved with the evaluation of Plan Amendment SSPA 2023 Roman numeral 1 3J, which is Prosperity Business Campus. And this is a Fairfax County Comprehensive Plan amendment that is considering land use changes for Land Unit D in the Maryfield Suburban Center. So joining me tonight, I see that we have Tom Burke, who is with the Fairfax County Department of Transportation, and also from Supervisor Palchik's Providence District Office. We have her the planner in her office, Matthew Savage, and also with us is Commissioner Jeremy Hancock, who is on the Planning Commission representing the Providence District. And I may have missed a few names from staff, but you all know who you are. So and on behalf of staff and on behalf of Fairfax County, I would like to welcome everyone from the community who is joining us tonight. So next, I'd like to inform you all that tonight's meeting is being recorded. So we kindly request for everyone to remain muted until they are called on to speak. And you can use the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen to let meeting hosts know that you wish to speak. And some versions of Zoom may also have a reactions button that'll need to be clicked before you can see the raise hands option. If you do not wish to provide feedback verbally, please place it in the chat box and we can answer it from there. We can try to get to those questions and answer from there. And lastly, please note that we will be taking notes. However, no conclusive decisions will be made about the proposal during tonight's meeting. So for tonight's agenda, we will begin by describing how comprehensive planning is used to guide the decisions on land use and development in Fairfax County, and how site-specific plan amendment process, how the site-specific plan amendment process fits in the ways that Fairfax County plans. From there, we will look at the adopted plan's vision for the Maryfield Suburban Center and finish up with an overview of the county's analysis and resulting recommendations that are being considered in the review of the plan amendment. From there, our guests representing EYA will provide you with some background information about the development proposal, along with some thoughts about their team's approach to redevelopment of the site in conformance with the comprehensive plan and addressing considerations of the analysis and also responses to community feedback. After that, we'll take questions and comments before wrapping the meeting up with an overview of the next steps for this plan amendment. So first, before we get started on the plan amendment, on the actual plan amendment, we want to make sure that everyone here tonight has some familiarity with the functions and purposes of the comprehensive plan. In doing this, I'll generally describe the way that the comprehensive plan is structured to focus on long-range planning and long-range land use planning, while also respecting the legacy of existing conditions within the built and natural environment. The comprehensive plan, or the plan for short, is the primary document that Fairfax County uses to guide the decision-making processes related to land development and resource protection over the long term. It is important to note that the plan is not law like the zoning ordinance, but instead it provides land use recommendations and serves as a living document that should be evaluated and reevaluated over time to ensure that the county's land use policies will continue to reflect community values, visions, and goals, and visions and goals, even as significant changes may occur. Site-specific plan amendments are just one of the ways that land use changes can be initiated and possibly lead to a process for amending the comprehensive plan. The primary focus that the county has in studying plan amendments is to be well prepared in understanding and responding to the potential impacts of such changes. The Fairfax County Comprehensive Plan is divided into three basic sections, and the first part is the policy plan volume, which provides countywide policies and objectives on 11 elements that include land use, transportation, the environment, public facilities, housing, and economic development, along with other topics. The second part is the area plan volume, which geographically divides the county into 4 planning areas, each with its own specialized guidance for implementing goals of the policy plan. Each of the area plans is separated into smaller planning districts that contain planning sectors and also special planning areas such as the Maryfield Suburban Center. Each of these examples are typically organized to set area-wide goals and priorities that will often be narrowed down even further to provide land use recommendations at the neighborhood level, as well as some guidance and conditions for site-specific development, which is what we'll be looking at today. The third section of the plan is made up of a series of supporting maps, such as the comprehensive plan land use map, the transportation plan map, and trails and bicycle network maps. The concept for future development provides a high-level and aspirational vision for development that conforms with adopted guidance of the comprehensive plan's area plans. The concept is presented both in map form and in the body of area plan text to set forth a vision for the ways that development should be established within specific areas of the county. Looking at the concept in map form will generally allow us to see where future population growth and development in Fairfax County are primarily to be concentrated within the mixed-use centers that are color-coded and outlined here in the legend. Areas outside of the mixed-use centers, such as yellow suburban neighborhood classifications, are planned for little or no change. The Maryfield Suburban Center is circled here because recommendations of the comprehensive plan of the comprehensive plan's concept for future development are prioritized in the review of the plan amendment that we'll be talking about tonight. The site-specific plan amendment process, or SSPA, is one of the ways that we plan for the future of land use and development in Fairfax County. SSPA is a community-oriented process from start to finish because it provides an opportunity for property owners and other members of the public to propose land use changes as nominations to amend the comprehensive plan for a single site or a collection of parcels. From there, other members of the community are given an active role in shaping the long-term vision of Fairfax County by providing their feedback about the nominations and background information that helps us reviewers and decision makers gain a better understanding from your lived experiences as neighbors of the selected and nominated sites. Members of the community like you had their first opportunity to learn about and discuss Prosperity Business Campus during the 2023 SSPA cycle. The feedback that we gathered at that time was also presented to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors to assist them in determining which nominations were authorized for further study and in-depth analysis on the Plan Amendment Work Program. The community screening phase involved various stakeholders who provided their initial thoughts about the nominated proposal and helped the county to identify the possible impacts or benefits that should be prioritized during the formal evaluation of this plan amendment. So when the nomination was added to the work program, county staff had somewhat of a head start as we set out to answer the questions that we see highlighted here in teal. The purposes for tonight's meeting are to provide you with some insight on where the evaluation for addressing potential impacts and identifying opportunities for beneficial outcomes from this proposed land use change currently stands. If the plan amendment is adopted by the Board of Supervisors, then the resulting recommendations will also be used to guide the review of this proposal during the zoning process, which will involve the review of applications for rezoning the site and a site plan approval before any permits can be issued for development or construction. The comprehensive plan introduces a variety of land use terms that refer to the quantity of development being proposed. And the two most common of these terms are density and intensity. Here in the aerial image of Merrifield, we can see how Prosperity Business Campus was developed with mostly low density commercial uses and low rise buildings, just like other sites with older development located directly to the east. At the same time, we can see more recent signs of higher intensity mixed use redevelopment that has taken place in the areas surrounding the Dunloring Merrifield Metro Station to the northeast and the Mosaic District to the southeast, as characterized by the taller building forms and lower visibility of areas that are dedicated to surface parking. Density is the term that's most often applied to residential uses, and it is measured in dwelling units per acre, or DU/AC. And here in this slide, we can see some of the typical building forms and housing types that are established at various densities throughout Fairfax County. In short, development containing fewer dwelling units per acre is less dense than a site with a higher number of dwellings per acre. And as we progress along this spectrum, there are examples of single-family detached homes located in areas that are recommended for 1 to 2 or 3 to 4 dwelling units per acre. And then various styles of attached and stacked townhomes, duplexes and triplexes are normally developed at the mid-range of density spectrum, while multifamily units such as apartments and condominiums could start in the range of 16 dwelling units per acre and go all the way up to 100 or more dwelling units per acre. Intensity is most commonly used to describe non-residential and mixed-use development, which could combine both residential uses and non-residential uses like offices, retail, and service uses. Floor area ratio, or FAR, is the way that we calculate intensity by dividing the floor area of a building space by the land area within a development site. In the example shown here, we can see 3 different design scenarios for a 100,000 square foot parcel that would all yield an intensity of 1.0 FAR. First, there's a 4-story building with 25,000 square feet on each floor, covering 1/4 of a site. Next, we see a 2-story building with 5,000 square feet on each floor, covering half of the site. And last, there's a 1-story building that covers the entire 100,000 square foot site area. Each of these are examples of a site that is built out at 1.0 FAR. And they also demonstrate how building forms help us to compare the amount of ground space that is to be taken up by various forms of development, largely as a function of building height. In analyzing the amendment, one of the first components that we refer to in the adopted comprehensive plan's vision for Maryfield Suburban Center. As we discuss this area-wide aspect of planning, it's important to note that the site-specific plan amendment does not have the Board of Supervisors approval to change the overall vision for Maryfield. Conversely, the vision for Maryfield is a primary instrument that is used to help us determine the scope of a plan amendment and also determine the appropriateness and how appropriately applied land use changes are required by the nominator's proposal. In addition to designating the land use functions and development characteristics for a variety of geographic areas, the adopted plan also prioritizes several factors that must be considered in the evaluation of the of development proposals for sites in the Maryfield Suburban Center. So here you see listed affordable housing, environment, public facilities, parcel consolidation, coordinated development, commercial revitalization, urban design, and mixed-use character, multimodal transportation improvements, and parks and open space and pedestrian connectivity. Next, we'll take a look at the land use concept for the Maryfield Suburban Center, which provides goals for establishing development at the highest intensities within two mixed-use core areas. The southern core area is focused on the creation of a vibrant town center at the site of the Mosaic District, and the northern core area focuses on promoting increased activity around the Dunloring Metro Rail Station. As such, both core areas are envisioned to develop with a mix of pedestrian-oriented uses with building design and heights that are relatively urban in character. To achieve these goals, the comprehensive plan sets forth several priorities for revitalization through Maryfield in ways that can promote improved quality of life, including greater access to affordable housing and ample amounts of publicly accessible parks and open space. The area map here is color coded so we can see how portions of the Maryfield, how portions of the suburban, I'm sorry, how portions of the Prosperity Business campus fit within the concept for land uses in Maryfield. So the business campus site is outlined in red. And as we can see here, it's split between adjacent to core areas in the transit station core in yellow, in non-core areas in blue. And then along the edges of the western edges of the site, we see the edges of Maryfield shown here in green. The adopted plan recommends for development in core adjacent areas to be stepped down to lower intensities than those that are established in the core areas while maintaining an overall urban character that prioritizes pedestrian-friendly connectivity as one of the defining assets of the cores. Non-core areas are primarily recommended to be suburban in intensity and character and serve as a transition to lower density uses that are farther away from the core areas, but they also have goals for improving pedestrian connections with sites that approach the core areas. Last but not least, we along the western edges of the site, the areas the portion along the western edges of the site are planned to be maintained as a buffer between the higher intensity mix of uses in Maryfield and the suburban neighborhoods that surround it. On October 12th, 2001, the Board of Supervisors designated a large portion of the Maryfield Suburban Center as a commercial revitalization area, or CRA, for the purpose of encouraging improved economic viability, appearance, and function of the area, either through the high quality of new development, rehabilitation, and/or redevelopment. By viewing these two maps side by side, we can see where the site of Prosperity Business Campus and other sites in and around both cores of the area fit within the Maryfield CRA. Next, by taking a side-by-side look at the land use concept map and building height map, we can get a general idea for how taller building heights are recommended in the core and adjacent to core areas to support greater development intensities, and then be tapered down into non-core areas and edge areas of Merrifield. Here on the left, we have the multimodal street grid map. As changes take place in Merrifield, the comprehensive plan provides recommendations for establishing a well-functioning multimodal transportation network in a gridded pattern that will provide a variety of options for north and southern movement between the Metro Station and Mosaic Center, as well as east and west between Gallows Road and Prosperity Avenue. Beside that, we have the open space pedestrian map, which is provided as an example for ways the vision of Merrifield emphasizes the needs for new development to integrate publicly accessible open spaces, such as parks, urban greens, and plazas, as a way of supporting a system of connections that will prioritize pedestrian safety, comfort, and access to recreation over the use of single occupancy vehicles. Lastly, to stick with the ideas that the comprehensive plan provides us about the ways people should be encouraged to move around the Merrifield Suburban Center, here we can see the streetscape concept mapped on the left, which establishes a hierarchy and sets functional goals for major roads and streets in Merrifield. To the right of this map, we have a closer look at the conceptual streetscape and cross-section examples for a ring road that is recommended to encircle and connect both of the core areas. The ring road concept is being shown here because it also overlays onto Prosperity Avenue, which serves as one of the key sections for north and south travel in Merrifield. In this concept, we can also see how the plan recommends adequate space for pedestrian walkways, cycling, and street furniture, along with space for ample amounts of decorative plantings and street trees to provide shade. The Merrifield land unit map on the left here shows us how the Merrifield Suburban Center is further separated into 13 sub areas that we call land units. And the map on the right is zoomed in to land unit D because this is the area that we'll be focusing on. And you can see here that it is separated into two subunits of D1 and D2. So before providing an overview of the county's evaluation of the site-specific plan amendment, I wanted to zoom in for one last look at the land use concept map for Merrifield. Once again, it is important to note that the adopted comprehensive plan recommends for development in areas adjacent to the transit station core to be urban in character, but at lower intensities and building heights than those to be found within the core area. And then as we cross onto the western side of Prosperity Avenue, development in the non-core areas is planned to be mostly suburban in intensity. Here we have an aerial map that's surrounded by several photos that were taken throughout the business campus to provide examples of the various building forms, landscaping, and streetscapes that are currently developed on the site. The 41-acre site of Prosperity Business Campus was developed with 13 low-rise to mid-rise buildings between 1980 and 1985. And those buildings contain approximately 1.5 million gross square feet of interior space that host a variety of commercial, institutional, light industrial, and flex uses that include office, warehousing, professional, and medical services. Prior to the completion of the business campus the 1975 comprehensive plan provided the option for residential development as mid-rise multifamily apartments on the western side of Prosperity Avenue as an alternative to the baseline plan. And the baseline plan recommendation for office and industrial uses was the only option for redevelopment for development on the eastern side of the road. However, in the time since Prosperity Business Campus was originally completed in 1985, the comprehensive plan's baseline recommendation for land unit has been for land unit D to develop with office and industrial uses at the current intensities, which are set at approximately 0.4 FAR. And this has remained in place throughout the adoption of several subsequent uh, updates to the Merrifield Plan. In 2001, the comprehensive plan was amended to incorporate various recommendations of the Merrifield Suburban Center Task Force that focused on the creation of a high-quality mixed-use urban environment served by an enhanced pedestrian and bicycle circulation system with connections to a network of parks and open spaces throughout the area. This was the first edition of the plan to recommend a core area concept for Merrifield, and the board also adopted two new alternative plan options for redevelopment as mixed uses on subunit D2, which we see here in the yellow. Option one allows the consideration of office use with support retail and service uses up to 0.85 FAR. Option two can consider redevelopment as mixed uses with a residential component or residential use with supporting retail and service uses up to 1.35 FAR. So on April 11th of 2023, the Board of Supervisors authorized the evaluation of a site-specific plan amendment in Land Unit D for redevelopment of consolidated sites in the Prosperity Business Camp with residential mixed uses up to 1.35 FAR. If adopted, this third option would effectively expand the alternative for subunit D2 onto the second alternative option for redevelopment of subunit D2 onto most of subunit D1 as well. So here's the list of initial planning considerations that the county prioritized when the board authorized this study. There's a need to establish compatibility with the residential and industrial uses on adjacent sites. The identification of an adequate and proportional mix of housing and non-residential uses. Needs for context-appropriate circulation improvements with pedestrian and bike access into adjacent to core and core areas. Streetscape improvements and tree preservation on Prosperity Avenue, ensuring the provision of adequately sized and publicly accessible parks and open space amenities, and expansion of urban character currently reserved for subunit D2 to a larger area for redevelopment. The SSPA nomination proposed approximately 2.7 million gross square feet of mixed-use residential development in the form of 2,173 new multifamily and single-family attached dwelling units with office, retail, and other supporting uses. The concept plan submitted by the nominators indicate that redevelopment of the site would provide the residents and visitors throughout the community with access to nearly 13 acres of active and passive recreational space across the site, which is approximately, and then that would be approximately more than 25% of the total site area. Evaluation of the plan amendment by Fairfax County Public Schools is important. In the evaluation of the plan amendment by Fairfax County Public Schools, it is important to note that this data accounts for the development potential of currently approved and entitled development, but it does not factor in the potential increase from the currently adopted plan options that have not been activated or tonight's proposed amendment. So in analyzing this proposal, FCPS identified what they considered to be a moderate capacity deficit at Falls Church High School, but also noted that a planned renovation of the high school is anticipated to include enhanced student capacity. For Jackson Middle School and Fairhill Elementary School, they were considered to have sufficient capacity for current programs and future growth. So here we could take a look at the baseline plan and redevelopment of non-residential uses under option one, and see that those uses would have no impacts to school enrollment numbers, of course, because there would be no new residents generated by either of those uses. On the other hand, here we can see how the adopted plan option one would potentially increase student enrollment numbers by up to 150 total students, and plan option three could yield between 235 to 1,014 new students in total. Development applications such as those to rezone properties and seek site plan approval and follow the comprehensive plan amendment process will have to be evaluated for further conformance with comprehensive plan guidance related to ensuring that public schools and other public facilities will be adequate to address the potential impacts of redeveloping the site. These bullet points that you see here provide just two of the ways that the deficiencies in capacity of schools could be mitigated and or avoided altogether. Schools or additional school capacity and other public facilities will need to be available to meet the demands, available and adequate to meet the demands generated by the new development. Phasing of the development will be expected to ensure the adequate and timely provision of supporting infrastructure and public facilities capacity. And these are quotes from the comprehensive plan that these are generated from quotes of from the comprehensive plan, and it is just used to describe how the two of the two of the key ways that the county evaluates potential change from redevelopment or new development. So next we can see some of the public feedback that was gathered in the initial SSP nomination screening, and also as we had our first community meeting in September of 2023. And some of the community's interests that were expressed are the availability of affordable dwelling units in the area, and a potential increase of that availability, and support for a new street grid and potential improved access to the Metro Rail station, and a desire to maintain existing pedestrian creek crossings the existing pedestrian creek crossing from Dunloring Village in its current location. And some of the concerns were visual impacts to existing residents to the west of the stream valley, adequacy of existing parks in Maryfield compared to the amount of development, and impacts to employment in the area with the loss of sites that are currently being used for office, commercial, industrial, and flex uses, and also school population growth, which is what I just touched on. So some of the goals of the plan amendment that have been identified as we consider the redevelopment is are also provided here in the next slide. And we have community revitalization, affordable housing, parcel consolidation and phasing, land use compatibility, and urban design and mixed use character. And when we talk about community revitalization, the one of the key points is the potential redevelopment of aging, low-rise, sprawling commercial uses that currently are served with surface parking lots. And then for affordable housing, the affordable housing and workforce units should be generated both within the townhomes and within the multifamily units. For parcel consolidation and phasing, unified a unified concept for redeveloping several parcels within this large site with an updated site design and modernized facilities. And that also could accommodate the way that we phase amenities to serve the new development. So I won't read through all the bullet points, but basically this gives an idea of some of the primary goals that are being considered with this plan amendment. So here are some additional ideas for some of the plan amendment goals that are being considered. For the environment, we have updated stormwater management facilities in line with current policies and regulations, preservation of the Long Branch Stream Valley, long-term preservation of the Long Branch Stream Valley's resource protection area and environmental quality corridor, and increase amounts of green space areas with efforts to preserve existing and mature trees to the extent feasible. Parks and open space. Under parks and open space, we have the generation of publicly accessible parks and recreational facilities. And that's important because Merrifield has been identified by the Fairfax County Park Authority as currently having a deficiency in parks and recreational facilities. So next we have an enhanced streetscape with landscaping to promote a park-like character along Prosperity Avenue. And lastly, on this slide, we have multimodal transportation and connectivity and circulation improvements appropriately is scaled for serving residential uses, and then active transportation facilities for pedestrian and bike connectivity. And that's important. That's really important to think about because we're considering a change from non-residential uses to a residential use. So we want to make sure that the streets uh, that are serving this development are appropriate for that use. And next, I will call on my colleague with the Fairfax County Department of Transportation, Tom Burke, who's going to go through the transportation assessment with a little more detail.
Thanks, Steve. My name is Tom Burke. I'm a senior transportation planner at the county's Department of Transportation. I just wanted to briefly talk about the role that the Department of Transportation plays. We provide transportation support on the plan amendment process. We take a multimodal approach. The comprehensive plan has long-range plans for the roadway network, bicycle network, and the pedestrian network with our transportation plan map, bicycle master plan, and trails plan. But we definitely take a look at all the modes. We also look at transit access. We look at safety, crash data. And in metro station areas, we do prioritize the non-vehicular modes. So we definitely want to make sure that the area around Dunloring is walkable and bikeable. We work with the applicant in this case to assess the transportation conditions. We looked at bicycle and pedestrian metrics to make sure that the facilities that are either out there or planned for the future are comfortable and low stress. We look at crashes, transit routes, and bus stops. Make sure that there's good coverage so that people. This is a slightly outside the half-mile, I think, radius to the metro. So we look at transit as well and bus routes. And I just wanted to also make sure that we looked at the cumulative impacts. This is a 2023 plan amendment. There were 2 additional plan amendments in the area at Alliance Center to the south, Merrifield at Dunloring to the east. So we made sure that the impacts of those sites were looked at cumulatively with the impacts of this subject site. Next slide. So taking a little deeper dive on like the streetscape and the bike ped facilities, we're looking at Prosperity Avenue, which of course splits the subject site right down the middle. On the left, you can see the current comprehensive plan was more focused on distributing the local traffic from the neighborhoods and the commercial districts to Gallows Road and Lee Highway. Prosperity Avenue is currently a 5-lane cross section. It's got some sidewalks, but it doesn't have bicycle facilities, and the pedestrian facilities are kind of narrow. So we worked with the applicant to come up with an improved long-term recommendation for the streetscape along Prosperity. We're going to narrow the street down to 3 lanes. So we're going to remove the outside through lanes. We're going to create a 10-foot shared use path on the west side of Prosperity and with a wide buffer. On the east side, you'll have a wide crosswalk. I'm sorry, a wide sidewalk with a wide buffer as well, with the potential for street trees. And we're going to work with the applicant to create safer crossings as well, so the pedestrians can get from one side of the site to the other while crossing Prosperity Avenue. So we're going to put more of the priority and focus on pedestrian and bicycle safety and comfort. Next slide. So in the end, after it's an iterative process. We've worked with the applicant and their traffic consultant. We've looked at different. We looked at the grid. The first slide that I spoke to I probably should have mentioned, had a grid of streets in the transportation plan map that has been in place for several years. We kind of took another look at that. We tweaked it a little bit. We made sure that the grid of streets is still effective. We still felt that it had the connections. We want to be able to. We still do want to distribute trips and traffic to Gallows and Lee Highway in an effective manner, while also creating nice pedestrian and bicycle facilities with views and vistas, like with green, heading down the middle of the suburban center to the green area that's heading out to the west. We're incorporating those bicycle pedestrian streetscape improvements along not only Prosperity, but we're also working with them on Hilltop Avenue, and each of these grid streets, as they get developed, will have bicycle and pedestrian amenities and characteristics kind of evolve. And then in order to like what we do in most sites, but especially around Metro Rail, we establish transportation demand management programs that encourage employees and residents to use alternative modes of transportation, to walk, bike, use transit. So essentially, we're trying to reduce the number of single occupant vehicle trips. So we work with the applicant to develop a TDM program in order to reduce the overall traffic impact of the development. So that, in a nutshell, is the transportation side of things. If there's any questions later, I'll be here to help answer.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Next, we will call on Bob Brandt, I think, unless there's someone else who would like to speak on behalf of the development proposal.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. This is Bob Brandt. I'm a land use attorney with the firm Walsh Colucci, and I represent, in this case, the applicant, which is a partnership between EYA and Link Logistics, the underlying property owner here. I want to thank Steve and Tom for their work in getting us to this point. I'll borrow a term that Tom used during his remarks. This has been a very iterative process, a very collaborative process thus far, working with Fairfax County staff. We've been working on this SSPA since 2023, as Steve mentioned earlier, and really gotten into a lot of the details in the last year or so. And I think the plan has come a long way since we first started working together. There's a lot of work left to be done after this SSPA process. As Steve was mentioning earlier, there will be a rezoning. We'll have a lot more details. We will be back in front of the community with more information at that time. But the last year or so, working together with staff on this plan amendment has really been a true collaboration, and I appreciate that. I'm going to turn it over to Jason Serino, my client with EYA, who's going to walk through the slides that we have prepared this evening. But I just want to start by saying that I really think that this is a unique opportunity. We have an opportunity now to comprehensively plan and ultimately rezone an approximately 41-acre assemblage in Merrifield, which is rare. I think back to that screen that Steve had up on his screen earlier that showed the pattern of development that's already occurred in Merrifield in certain areas around the metro, where individual buildings have come online, individual blocks have come online with redevelopment. This is really an opportunity to transform the entire western edge of the Merrifield suburban center and establish the transition between that higher intensity development near the metro and the existing established residential neighborhoods to the west. And so we've undertaken that challenge here, and we've got a lot of great ideas that Jason is going to walk through on how to effectuate that. But it really is an exciting project to be a part of, since we're talking about such a large section of Merrifield. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jason at EYA, and he will walk you through our slides. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Bob. And as Bob said, thank you to staff and Stephen and Tom for your remarks and hard work getting us here. And thanks everybody who's on the call from the community. We truly appreciate it. We kind of love the process when the community gets involved, and it can truly be collaborative, as Bob said. I know there was a lot of information tonight. As we're in a comprehensive plan process, it's important to understand that process and what goes on. So we'll be very brief. We just want to do an introduction of ourselves, hit some very high level points of how we'll move from this comprehensive planning stage and very conceptual drawings, and take the recommendations that we've heard and turn that into a rezoning application. And as Bob said, with a lot more detail. Stephen, if you could go to the next slide, please. So I'm Jason Serino. I'm Senior Vice President of Development at EYA. I've been working at the company for almost 12 years now, but EYA has been around over 30 years, working solely in the DC metro region. We've delivered over 7,000 units, 10 million square feet of total development. We are a company that gets involved initially in the acquisition process of land, and that's how we got brought on board with our partner, Link Logistics. But we are a company who stays involved all the way through construction. And so we have departments and team leaders throughout that will handle every stage of the process, from this early on acquisition through development phase, through permitting, through the construction process. We sell our homes. We have a construction team, a warranty team, marketing staff. So we do all of that. Myself and my colleague, who's also on the call, Kushal Reddy, along with others, we're available to answer any questions you may have at any point, and we'll provide our contact information at the end of this on a slide, but also in the chat. Kushal can put that in there. We're available from this point on all the way through as points of contact for anybody in the community. And so that's kind of how we're EYA is this locally based, fully integrated company, and we talked about at the beginning, we truly are a community oriented company, and we believe in this process, and we take it seriously. And so we're glad so many of you have shown up tonight. Next slide, please. Just real quickly, this is the Metro map. We have delivered or in the process of delivering over 52 communities in the DC metro area. On the left-hand side of this page is you see numbers 45 in orange, 47 in orange. Those are two recent projects in the area. Grand Park Plaza off of Arlington Boulevard, where we integrated townhomes into a shopping center, and 47 is Tyson's Ridge, which is right on Leesburg Pike, just east of 495. You're probably all a little bit more familiar with number 31, which is the Mosaic District, which are the townhomes integrated right into the Mosaic District retail area, just across the road from where you guys are, and probably some of you on this call are within the boundary that was mailed to that live in that area. Next slide, please. Bob mentioned we are partnered with Link Logistics. You can go to the next one, Steve. Link Logistics is, as Bob said, the underlying landowner. They are our partner through development on the multifamily component, and they have over 25 years of experience doing that, with over 20 communities delivered. They specialize in mixed-use projects, urban infill, and transit-oriented development, everything that this project is. And so we're thrilled that they're a partner of ours on this and bringing their expertise in the multifamily arena to this project. Next slide, please. Here are just some examples of things that the Link team has worked on throughout the country, and it gives you a sense of varying styles that they have and how to incorporate multifamily buildings into the various communities based on precedents in the area, or bringing something new and exciting to an urban area. You kind of see a little bit of everything here. Next slide, please. And the next one. So we'll talk a little bit about the site plan. As Steve walked you through, there are two options. But really at this phase, what we're focusing on are the comprehensive plan recommendations. And so we've worked really hard to honor a lot of the things that are in the comprehensive plan or are being recommended. And I think, some of the more important things to highlight are the amount of consolidated park space that we have in this plan. We have in both options, option 1 and 2, we have just about 5 acres of park in either scenario, publicly accessible. That was a very important piece of this park space. So we're not talking about just almost 5 acres of brand new open space. We're talking about almost 5 acres of publicly accessible park space. There is significantly more open space being provided on this plan than just those 5 acres, but that is the publicly accessible component. And you'll see and those are the lighter green areas labeled park. The slightly darker green shaded area called park on the left-hand side of both plans, that is the stream valley buffer. So that's also being preserved. And we're looking for ways without disrupting or doing disturbance in the RPA to provide maybe trail connections through there. We're certainly going to honor the existing pedestrian bridge. We've met with the community over the last, I guess it's been about 14 months. We've met with the community and Dunloring Village and representatives from Dunloring Village a couple times. And we've heard loud and clear that pedestrian connection and maintaining that is key. And so we're going to do that. And we're looking at ways to not just maintain that, but to maybe even enhance that connection. And as you come up and out of the bridge connection in the stream valley, we also know it's important on how you get to the metro. And so, there's going to be multiple new street connections with sidewalk connections all the way out to Prosperity Avenue and other connection points that can get you from that crossing out to Prosperity and eventually to the metro. A couple other things I want to highlight. So Mr. Burke, you can go back one. Sorry, Steve, I wasn't quite ready yet. Mr. Burke mentioned, this grid of streets, and so we've worked really closely with his staff to honor those connections east of us with 2 direct street connections. And I think one of the things that was mentioned was multimodal connectivity. So these aren't just street and pedestrian connections, but how do we get an enhanced pedestrian connection from the east moving west? And so we're working, and as we develop our rezoning plans, we're going to work closely with staff, and we're looking at active transportation trails and a connection moving east to west that's a little bit different and a little bit bigger and better than what would just be a typical sidewalk connection that's associated with a street. We're working closely with them on the section of Prosperity Avenue and working to bring the section that is recommended to life, that puts a couple lanes on the road, parking on the road, and likely a shared use path that's protected behind the curb. And in doing that, there was we've had a discussion tonight on tree preservation to the extent feasible. And so we're really looking at Prosperity Avenue as a potential opportunity to do some of that. Obviously, with adjustment of the section of Prosperity Avenue, that's going to be something that we really need to focus on in the next stages and the details, and making sure that we do what we can to preserve as many of those trees as possible, given the improvements that we are working into this plan. And so we'll work closely with staff and the forest conservation team at the county to do that. I think other than that, between our 2 options, we're looking at an option that is providing townhome units in kind of the middle portions of the site, moving east to west. And then as you're sitting along 66, you'll have our multifamily building components. And we're looking at on the south side along Hilltop Road, another large multifamily building. And we are reserving at this time the option to keep the office building that's there, as it's one of the newer buildings out on the site, as a potential option for that block. But really working with the comprehensive plan's recommendation to step down development appropriately as you move east to west throughout the site. If you could, Steve, go to the next slide. We'll show you, because we are at a very high level planning and concept phase, we'll just show you some precedent imagery. These are townhomes we've done in the area throughout the region of different styles. We have our Grosvenor Heights project on the left, both the top and the bottom, which is near the Grosvenor Metro. On the Maryland side, we have our North Side project at the Park Potomac mixed-use development. In Maryland as well, this is currently selling, and we're bringing our first residents out there. Our Tower Oaks project in Maryland was a very successful project, which is the lower middle image that you see here, and could represent some of the styling that you see at this site. And then obviously on the right-hand side, that's the mosaic townhomes that I mentioned earlier. I think, you know, there's a lot to take from the urban form of those units. We won't be so kind of modern and contemporary at this site, you know, but it's not located right in mosaic, but it shows you kind of the different stylings that we like to do and how we like to fit our townhomes into the neighborhoods that they're becoming a part of. Next slide, please. We already hit on some of the Link multifamily buildings, but here's a bunch more options of things that they've done, just to kind of give you an additional flavor of who they are and what they bring to a development like this. You can go to the next slide, Steve. So these are just some images, and it help us talk through some of the kind of open spaces and things that we're doing here, and give you a sense of, you know, what could come of all these spaces in the almost 5 acres of publicly accessible park space. So kind of looking at the top left, you know, we'll have large open green spaces for recreation, for potentially some, you know, weekend sports fields and things like that for soccer games and stuff like that. We're looking at having pavilion structure or something that could be used to host events, and you know, you could see community concerts or something like that being held at those things, and different types of shows and events that would sit next to the lawn that we're also planning in that area. You see different spaces, and as you move to the right in some of these images, where outdoor seating and almost like rooms are created, and as you get to some of the smaller, more intimate spaces, so you get more passive recreation and more of an intimate setting. There's a couple images as the mother and daughter walking through the field. You know, you could see getting butterfly gardens or some natural plantings in an area with seating where you can go sit and read a book or meet and talk with a friend. And then all the way on the right-hand side, we have some concepts of how we could make this crossing across the stream more enhanced. We call what's out there today a fair weather crossing, and for the folks who use it, you probably know what that means, especially over the rain that we've had over the last 2 months, which has really been an unprecedented level of rain for the area, where that crossing is not always accessible. So we look at ways to improve upon that. And the middle image on the right is actually a bridge crossing that we built over a bioretention facility in our Grosvenor Heights community that I showed you some architecture on earlier. So it's not just precedents, but it's stuff that we've done and executed on other projects of ours. And then as you look at some of the other imagery, it's just you're getting into some of the more urban framework and hardscape areas that you could see popping up around our multifamily buildings. I like the middle image. We like to incorporate play features. You know, we'll have a playground feature and something like that, more traditional, but we also like to include more interpretive play features as you work your way through park spaces. You know, so kids and families can walk and explore and have more than just a typical playground space. So this kind of gives you a flavor of you know, how these areas can look and feel, and certainly we'll have more details over time. Next slide, Steve. There is one that might have been it. Oh, there was one more. So we are on top of the the publicly accessible open spaces, we're also really kind of digging into and looking into a private amenity, and that also, that will allow the residents of the townhomes, because the multifamily buildings will already have private amenity spaces within the buildings. This would give the townhome users and owners amenities of their own on site, and that helps take some of the pressure off some of the publicly accessible open spaces, and really creates a sense of community in place for those residents. And so these are some images of the clubhouses or private amenities that we've created at various communities. At our Farmstead community on the top left, and that's also the top middle, where you can see an art piece that we worked in there and a stained glass windmill. At our lower left is our Tower Oaks community. We were talking about that earlier. You can see some of the interior finishings. And on the top right, that's not actually an EYA clubhouse. It was a clubhouse built by Toll Brothers at the Amelin community in Maryland. But it gives you a sense of what also could be brought here as an amenity for the future residents. Next slide, please. So here's our contact information, both myself and Kushal with EYA. We also have Bradley Carvasic's information on here, who is the lead for our partner, Link Logistics. Please feel free to reach out to us as you have any questions. As we do ramp up this process and we start moving through the SSPA process and getting into the rezoning process, we will engage the community and host meetings, but certainly feel free outside of that to reach out to us if you have any questions. With that, Steve, I'll turn it back over to you. And I just want to thank everybody for their time tonight and look forward to working with everyone and talking in the future.
Okay, thanks, Jason.
Yep.
So in wrapping up, we just wanted to take a look at some of the things that are next for the plan amendment. And at the top, first, I wanna show you all where you can find the plan amendment webpage, and also my email is here if you'd like to send me any comments or requests for additional information about the site. And I want everyone to know that all of your feedback is welcome this evening, and anything that we learn from you all will be included in our analysis, and also provided to provided in summary to the in the staff report. And then the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors will review and consider staff's recommendations and also community feedback for the plan amendment. And the community is invited to attend the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors schedules. I mean, the Board of Supervisors public hearings, and to provide additional comments at those meetings, or written comments can be provided in advance. And the tentative dates are listed to the right side of this slide. And I think that I guess the first milestone would be publishing the staff report. And if those public hearing dates remain in place, the staff report should be published by Wednesday, August 27th. And then it will be available on the plan amendment website, and also through the Planning Commission's schedule websites after that. And the Planning Commission public hearing is tentatively scheduled right now for Wednesday, September 17th. And then the Board of Supervisors public hearing is tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, November 18th. And if you're watching and you have a way of scanning the QR code at the top, that'll also take you to the website. So, and with all that, I would like to thank everyone for attending tonight, and we can now look into the audience and start calling on our guests for any questions and comments. And I see first at the top of the list, I see Brian, who has his hand raised.
Sure. Well, Stephen, Brian Zelli here. Thank you so much to you and everybody, the proponents of the project and all who are involved in setting up the meeting tonight. Really appreciate being able to get a hold of that. I represent Dunloring Village, your friendly neighbor to the west there. And I want to also thank especially the proponents who've been engaged with our community for quite some time. Most recently, I think earlier this year, we had a similar type meeting to this. So some of the similar themes, I know we've covered the bridge before, so I don't want to rehash that, but do appreciate your attention to the bridge. And of course, Dunloring Village does own the bridge and the land underneath it, but Link Logistics owns the approach on the eastern side. So we, speaking as much as I can, we would be happy to work with you for the bridge improvements that were mentioned earlier. So I have 3 questions. I'll just kind of rattle them off, and then the appropriate person can hopefully answer that. Number 1 is Fairfax County has embarked in a long delayed but finally happening stream restoration for Long Branch. Question 1 is how that fits into this, especially with the tree preservation. I would just hate to see a major restoration go through and then, a year later, a couple years later, something else happens and does something that's not compatible with what was just previously done. We've already seen lots of that happen around Fairfax County. Question number 2, and actually a 2-part question. One is let me restart. The Hilltop Road frontage. I'm not sure if Bob Brandt, the attorney representing the law firm, or Link Logistics realizes that Link Logistics has frontage on Hilltop Road. Link Logistics or whoever is in charge of taking care of it does not take care of it. Dunloring Village has been, mowing the grass and trimming the trees around there. We're not really interested in kind of upkeeping that property. And I hate to mention adverse possession, but just trying to encourage or persuade the landowners to take better care of their own frontage, just in the existing situation on Hilltop Road. So more of a comment than a question. And then finally, Prosperity Avenue. What I heard from the analysis was it kind of missed that road has already been put on a road diet. The 4 or actually 5-lane configuration shown in the pictures, that's a very old photo from a couple of years ago. That already has a bike lane. It already has been reduced, but just kind of curious what that would look like going forward with that road diet as it is now maintained. There's a lot more pavement than there really needs to be. So anytime you can replace impervious blacktop with green grass, that would be very welcome. So anyway, those are my 3 questions or comments, and I will go on mute and listen to the responses. Thank you.
Sure, thanks, Brian. Steve, would you mind if I took a pass at answering those questions?
Sure, go ahead.
Great, thanks, Brian, for your questions and your attention to this, of course. The first question regarding the Stream Valley restoration. Yes, we are also aware that the county has plans to, and I think they're in the process of planning to do some stream restoration improvements. At this stage, at the comprehensive planning stage, we haven't really engaged in any detailed conversations with them about that project. But obviously, as we go through the rezoning process coming up shortly, I do expect there will be some conversations and ongoing coordination with them. We certainly don't want to do anything on our site that will interfere with or impede or damage the work that the county is going to be doing in that Stream Valley. And so we will certainly be doing a lot of coordination. One of the things that we are looking to do, and Jason alluded to this in his remarks, is possibly adding some natural trails through the existing Stream Valley, through the woods on our side of the property line. That existing bridge connection, which, as you alluded to, we're hoping to improve, would provide your community with access to our side of the riverbank. And so we're potentially looking to add some natural trails through those woods that not only future residents of this neighborhood, but also your neighborhood and members of the public could enjoy. So I do think there will be a lot of coordination and discussion about that Stream Valley as we get into the detailed phase during the rezoning. The second point you mentioned regarding Hilltop, thank you for pointing that out. We will certainly pass that on to the to Link Logistics, who unfortunately just had a conflict, couldn't make it tonight. But let's please stay in touch. I think you have my contact information already, so perhaps we can connect offline, and I'll be sure to pass that along and make sure that they are continuing to maintain their property and it's not a burden on Dunleary Village. Finally, regarding the Prosperity Road Diet, you're correct that in recent years, the county has already done some, quote, road dieting of its own by adding on-street bicycle lanes, doing some restriping there. What we're proposing to do, and there's been a lot of coordination with the Planning Division and Fairfax County Department of Transportation, what we are planning to do is kind of diet it even further. One of the things that's lacking along Prosperity today is on-street parking. As this area transitions from the industrial complex that it is today to the proposed residential neighborhood that we'd like to develop here, there will be a need for on-street parking. And so by pulling the curbs in even further than they are now, reducing some of that asphalt, adding on-street parking lanes on either side, that will have the effect of not only increasing the on-street parking supply, but also calming traffic, slowing traffic down as it moves forward. What we're also talking about doing is taking those existing on-road bike facilities and creating an off-road bike facility in the form of a shared use path that will run along the west side of Prosperity. And so while the bike lanes on street today, they serve a purpose, they give bicyclists a place to go on the road, in coordination with county staff. We've agreed to work with them to put that facility off street, which will be a significant safety improvement for the bicyclists. And so we've already got some ideas, and we've worked up some ideas and concepts with county staff that will further diet that on-street condition on Prosperity. While we're talking about that, there was a comment in the chat that I saw. There was, in fact, a meeting, and this is Rebecca's comment. There was a meeting in January where FCDOT discussed a proposed road diet for Prosperity in this area. We are working with them on that. We will be closely coordinating with FCDOT on the road improvements, the off-street bike improvements going forward to make sure that we are tying into what the county is already planning to do on Prosperity closer to the metro station. So, Brian, I hope that answers all of your questions. Rebecca, I hope that hits one of your questions that you raised in the chat as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I just also want to point out that the I-66 mega project realigned Prosperity around the same time that Road Diet was put in. And those two efforts were completely not coordinated very well. So there's a lot of excess blacktop and a lot of trees were taken down that really didn't need to be taken down if those two projects were closely coordinated. So I hope that this project, if it goes forward, is able to do a little bit better. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Next we have Jim Coakley. You can unmute yourself, Mr. Coakley.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great. So I want to give my full support to this plan, and I also want to raise some excitement about what is happening in the Merrifield. I was one of the original members of the task force back in the 90s. My family has multiple parcels in the Merrifield area. And at the time when we were developing this, we really didn't know how quickly or how successful it would be. And we can look and see all the changes from the Mosaic District all the way up into the Metro. And it's just been such a huge success. And if you also look back at that time, we were looking at trying to consolidate, 4-acre parcels. And, this is a very rare opportunity to be able to transform 41 acres of land, which is a huge opportunity for the county and not one that comes by, that often. When this property, I think, was developed, I don't even know that the majority of the property was developed when the Metro went through. So a lot has changed since that, land was put into place. There's a lot of huge opportunities there. I think the amount of parkland that you're going to be able to develop in that area is huge. I think that the initiatives to try to be able to bring in residential development, which part of that was to try to incentivize the usage of the metro and be able to have people to be able to work and live there. You know, we are seeing some shrinkage of office use, you know, all throughout the county. But I feel like when we redevelop and we create these beautiful living spaces, that also encourages the office redevelopment. So I think that those will go hand in hand. And I'm just very excited to see the opportunities that you're doing. It seems like you're listening very well to the community, trying to create some really beautiful park spaces, which is great. I did have a question with regard to the Merrifield Avenue extension, which is not really clear on the drawings that you had, but on some of the ones that I looked in your you know, online, it appeared that, you know, you moved the road slightly, you know, along the extension point. Instead of a straight line, it was bumping up a little bit to the north. I happen to own that parcel that it's bumping up into. Now, obviously, you know, there's pros and cons to every road, you know, extension, and that road will probably, you know, destroy most of what the Craven Tire site is, you know, but if we move that up to the north, you're preventing the development of the two parcels that are there, whereas the land that will be remaining, I don't know that we'll be able to put, you know, a lot of things in that particular area for the long-term planning. So as you kind of envision and what you're going to do with that parkland, or if you're going to leave, you know, an office complex there, or however, it would be useful for you to kind of look at how that extension is also going to impact the remaining parcels along Door Avenue, because that will feed into the redevelopment of that and the HIT property that's to the north. And those are my comments and questions.
Thank you.
Jim, thanks for the comment. We will certainly take a look at that. And thank you also for stating your support of this. I appreciate that. With regard to the alignment of the future Merrifield Avenue extension, we'll certainly be getting way into the weeds on that topic as we move forward with the rezoning. So thanks for pointing that out. We will definitely take a look.
Looks like we have another guest, Anna. You can unmute yourself.
Hi. Yes, I am getting on video as well. I just had a question. I actually live along the edge that faces that development. So I thought I had an interesting perspective, meaning I have some concerns. I am supportive of the project, and I have some concerns about the light and the noise. So if you have
Anna, you live in Dunloring Village facing the stream
Yes.
valley towards us?
Yes, yes. And in the winter, when the trees are bare, the trees that are remaining, because
Sure.
they go down pretty often, but that stream bed does need a lot of work. But when we look through the trees, when the business buildings that were there, they shifted the lights upward. So it's funny, like sitting in my dining room right now, we actually had to put stickies on the windows because they are so bright. And then in the bedrooms. So I guess, you know, just thinking about how this is getting developed, I am a little interested in thinking about when you are developing this park area. Because when I think about like the shared spaces at Mosaic, it's great. It's great for families and coming together, but not necessarily like, I feel like it's very close. And I have just concerns of like the quietness that I enjoy from my view.
Yeah, I would say this will be a significant improvement over what's out there today. There's a lot of surface parking associated with the single story, you know, commercial light industrial building uses. We're improving this with, you know, I've mentioned the almost 5 acres of publicly accessible park space, but it's, you know, the open space is going to be around 12 to 13 acres. So it's really eliminating the surface parking, which comes with a lot of, you know, tall pole lighting, which is what I'm sure what's causing, your issues. So that won't exist. There will be street lights. They are residential, they will be residential style street lights. There are ordinances in place to, along dark sky initiatives and other things that have come along long since the Prosperity Business Center Park was approved and had to follow that. Has, different type of lighting. It has shielding so that you direct the light in the area that it's supposed to illuminate, and it doesn't go upwards or off-site. So from a lighting standpoint, you should see a significant improvement just for the nature of this development, but also because of how county policies have changed since the business park was implemented. But residential development of this type and scale, especially what's along the western edge, will provide an improvement for you. And, without getting into too much detail, because we're very conceptual and we don't know what the park's going to be, but this isn't intended to be a up all night, park with, football fields with stands and lights spilling over. I'm sure that was your initial concern when thinking what are these park spaces going to be? These are typically, dawn till dusk facilities, and there will be, you could see times where, there are special events, but it's not the regular regional park that is just programmed with leagues for sports teams that run, until 11 o'clock at night with lights on.
Super.
I'll just add that the kind of what Jason talked about with the county requirements for lighting to be directed downward. Both the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance have their own sections that address that. The comprehensive plan has a general language about how development should not cause light pollution and also noise pollution. And the zoning ordinance, when they get into the process of doing a zoning ordinance, the rezoning and the site planning, they will have to provide a lighting plan that shows that there's no spillover outside of their property. And being that their property line is actually at across the Long Branch Stream Valley, there should be no opportunity or no chance that light pollution from this site would be as obtrusive as you indicated that the current situation is. But also, kind of like Jason said, that site predates the county's dark skies initiatives that resulted in the ordinance requirements and also county policies that deal with light pollution.
I also hear the trash trucks 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, but
Yeah, it's possible that there'll be residential beside you. I could probably guarantee you too that the people who live there wouldn't like having their trash picked up right outside their homes at 5 o'clock in the morning too. So that could be another potential benefit of having residential neighbors that probably have some of the same values that you have about getting a good night's rest without those types of things happening in their backyards as well. So
thank you.
you're welcome. Next we have Anne.
Yeah, hi. I also live in Dunmoring Village. My question is, consistently every summer and fall and actually spring, like all the time, we get torrential gully washers, especially since 66 is draining into our stream that bridge is going to go over. I take video of it when we have these storms, and I know for a fact that Hilltop gets totally closed out and huge logs and things go rushing across it. Are you guys aware of that? Like, to put so many people that will be taking that intersection of Prosperity and Hilltop to go towards the town of Vienna to Cedar, it gets closed out. I don't know if you're aware of that, but if we're going to keep waiting for the county to do anything about that stream, it's not going to work. Because so far they haven't done anything. They don't come and clean it out. Nothing really happens with it. It just gets full of dead tree debris, and it blocks up all the hilltop, and it is a huge hazard. My second point is that stop sign where, forgive me if I sound rude, but some genius decided to put bars up so we cannot make a proper right turn to come down hilltop instead. And it has caused several people to get into really nasty accidents. And there have been fatalities on that corner with people slamming through and going past that curve into trees. So how is this going to be mitigated? I'd love to know if you're going to do circles at these intersections, or how do you plan to control it? Because starting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it can be quite gridlocked on Prosperity, Hilltop, and 29. It's really nasty. Has there been a study?
Sure. And I'll start by addressing your first question regarding the flooding issues along the Long Branch Stream Valley. The last we met with the Dunloring Village Board of Directors, we actually talked about that, and they made us very much aware of it. And so, I think to some extent, a lot of those issues, those flooding issues, aren't caused by anything that's happening today or will happen in the future on our site, but rather probably attributable to some of the work that was done with the Route 66 widening improvements. And so we're certainly well aware of them. I'm not sure what, if anything, that this applicant could do to address them in the future. But one of the things I will say is that as we move forward with this through the rezoning phase, the site plan phase, and the construction phase, the developers here will be required to comply with all of the applicable current stormwater regulations, which I can assure you have been updated significantly many times over since our property was developed in the early to mid 1980s. Current stormwater regulations are much stronger, much more stringent than they were back then. And so on a moving forward basis, there will be necessarily with this development some pretty significant stormwater improvements on our site. And so I think, EYA, Link Logistics, as the owner developer here, they share your concern. They certainly want to make sure that the future residents of this community, as well as your community, are able to drive up and down Hilltop safely during all weather conditions. And so, as we move forward here, we'll make sure that we're doing our part in mitigating and controlling the flow of any stormwater. As it relates to your concerns about Hilltop, and I'm looking at Google Maps on my other screen right here to try to get a sense of where your concern is with regard to that dangerous intersection. Are you looking at the intersection of Hilltop and kind of Old Lee Highway where it curves into Hilltop on the south side? I just want to better understand what your concern is.
Yes, I am.
That is across the street and kind of a little bit up Hilltop from where our property is. There was a question in the chat about another building there. There is one building that is part of this kind of larger area here on the west edge of Merrifield that is not part of our property, and that's the Saudi Arabian Cultural Mission building, kind of on the southwest corner. And so I think that intersection is off-site for us and a little bit beyond the scope of our proposed development. But we'll take a look at that as we move forward here. I don't know that there's anything that this applicant can do about it, but certainly appreciate you pointing it out for.
No, I truly appreciate what you're saying. Also, understanding that your whole property development really doesn't take into effect that. My concern is, I think you mentioned 2,000 something people coming into the area. And I think with that responsibility of bringing that influx of people, vehicles, walking, whatever, that you need to take into consideration the existing infrastructure of this area. And it's dreadful. It's already very difficult for us to make a left-hand turn out of our development and, try to even go up Hilltop, let alone having additional 2,000 families or people. I'm not sure what that amount was that you had said, but it's substantial to add huge congestion to the area. And it's just something to look into if Fairfax County could even take a peek at it and see if there's something else that we can do with these intersections that get totally gridlocked. And, you know, 2-3 lights can change by the time you get to them just to get to 29. So it's just, that's more of my point, as opposed to your development. Your development looks beautiful, and I hope it's a nice place for us on our end to kind of cross that bridge and visit with neighbors over there too. But just keep in mind that that's a lot of people to be coming down that road that has so many issues already. So I appreciate your time, though. Thank you for listening.
And this plan amendment has been subject to a transportation study at this high level, what we consider to be a high level of the planning process. And then there's another transportation study that has to be completed with the zoning application as well. But I'm not sure. I can't tell you if the scope of that, if the scope of that transportation study, which has been worked out with the Virginia Department of Transportation, also Fairfax County Department of Transportation, has looked that far beyond the site. So
Steve, Tom's on, so Tom can speak to that. We do scope with the county and look beyond our site frontage as required, but Tom can speak to maybe some more of the details of this specific scope.
Well, I was going to say that I know with the staff, we have at the staff level, we have recognized the 2 intersections, at least 2 intersections on Hilltop that probably require a little attention. Don't know if it'll be tied directly with this site, but I understand the bars that she was talking about. It looks like, you know, with Old Lee and Hilltop, someone had to make the decision which was the through street and which was the side street. And apparently it was decided that Old Lee, there was probably more cars going to Route 29. So there's bars that basically prohibit cars from kind of going up and down Hilltop unimpeded, without any kind of constraints. You have to actually get into a right turn lane and turn right onto Hilltop to go out towards Cedar. And you know, whether or not that is the appropriate treatment, perhaps that's something that can be looked into. But we have looked at this intersection, and we've actually also talked about whether or not the intersection of Hilltop and Prosperity needs to be straightened out a little bit. It's a little skewed at this point, and it might be safer for pedestrian crossings. Pedestrians there's no place for pedestrians to cross at Old Lee and Hilltop. So that might be something that needs to be looked at as well. But then at Hilltop and Prosperity, right now, the intersection is skewed. Whether or not it could be straightened out a little bit might be something that we want to look into. So I do think that these are things that will be looked at as we move forward.
Thanks, Tom. So I don't see any more hands raised. So I'll go to the chat. And there was a question about the total number of parking spaces. At this point with the comprehensive plan, the comprehensive plan does not get into the total number of parking spaces. And that part of that is because right now at the level of review that the comprehensive plan that a comprehensive plan amendment entails, we have not, there's I guess a density range that is allowed, that could be allowed, or an intensity range that could be allowed, and that would be up to 1.35 FAR, and then possibly up to around 1.5 with bonus density. But right now, we've been identifying that as the up to range or the high range, and that's not guaranteed, is still not guaranteed that when they come forward with a development proposal that the 2,173 units that were nominated are the the number that they would go to. So as they get into the zoning process, and zoning has a whole section that deals with the review of parking requirements and meeting the county parking requirements that are use based. So they could be based on the number of townhomes, a certain number of parking spaces required for a number of townhomes, a certain number of parking spaces required for apartment units and condominium units of a certain size. Then there could be a certain number that are required for different types of apartments and condominiums, where there could be a difference between senior living facilities versus standard apartments and things of that nature. And they haven't gotten that far into the detail of determining exact numbers. So that's why zoning has not been involved with parking calculations up to this point. But when they get into their rezoning and development of an actual detailed development plan, they will have to be able to show that they either meet the zoning ordinance requirements for parking, or otherwise for parking spaces required, or otherwise qualify for any types of waiver or modification of those parking numbers. I hope that helps in answering the parking question.
Yeah, and Steve, I'll just add, the multifamily buildings that we're proposing will park themselves in garages at the base or underneath those buildings. The townhomes will all have garages, at least for the market rate units, and most likely for the affordable units, they will have 2 garage spaces per unit. And then we are building out this grid of streets that we've been talking about, and all those streets will have on-street parking for additional visitor parking for the townhome uses. So it's just in, high level, in theory, this should be sufficiently parked, because we know within the multifamily buildings and the townhouse units, the parking we're going to provide. And, we can see that the amount of streetscape out here, the streets that are going to be out here, there will be a substantial amount of on-street parking that will be put out here.
Thanks,
And I think, that, to the traffic comment as well, we are going to get into that study. And, we don't just look at, from a traffic standpoint, there's a significant amount of traffic out there today for the existing uses. And so, yes, we are bringing, call it 2,000 plus residents, whatever that number may be. But, when you do a traffic study, you also take into consideration the 1.5 million square feet of commercial uses that will no longer be there generating traffic. And I'm not saying it's not an increase in traffic. I don't have the exact numbers, and we'll get into those details, but you do look at what are you taking off the grid versus what you're putting on. So it's not a straight add of, that many residents and that many vehicles, because there are a substantial amount of trips coming off the grid.
Thanks, Jason. I think that
I think the only other one, I answered the retail question in the chat, and Bob mentioned the
road died.
Yeah, but the Saudi Arabian Cultural Mission building, well, he did mention that's not part of our application, so it will not be part of what we plan in our rezoning. It is inside Land Unit D. So it is subject, right, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, it is subject to the comprehensive plan recommendations as part of Unit D.
It's subject to the baseline recommendations, but when we draft this plan option, we are going to call out the specific tax map parcel numbers in Land Unit D1 that can follow through on option 3. And since they aren't a party to this plan amendment, they have not approached us with any interest in being involved in the plan amendment. That tax map parcel that this site sits on is not going to be listed in that specific listing of 14 tax map parcels.
Okay, so understood.
So it's left out of the possibility of joining in to this plan option number 3.
Okay, and I did see a question on building height and affordable housing. The multifamily will be, I think, up to 85 feet tall. The multifamily buildings, townhouses, with a maximum height of 55 feet tall. and there will be affordable housing in all of these units as required, and you know, that's I think upwards of 12% of the units as affordable, and that's for the townhouses. There are varying requirements for multifamily and townhouses, and varying affordability levels as you get into the multifamily that you target workforce and, you know, and affordable.
All right.
So that will be a component of this project.
All right. Thanks, Jason. Let's see. There was
I think that's
another.
it, right?
There, a few more questions have been added, and there was one that there was one about let's see.
That's all I see.
There's one about retail and restaurants.
Yeah,
Will it be?
maybe I replied. Does that only go to the person who asked the question?
I think so. I'm
Okay,
not
so
seeing it
yeah,
in.
I there will be a small amount of retail in the base of our multifamily building or buildings. Something kind of more appropriate for where we are. You know, it's not the intensity that you would see next to the metro in those buildings or at Mosaic as we move to this transition area, but there will be some component of non-residential uses that will look to incorporate a small amount in one or two of these buildings.
And then I think the last question that I saw is whether or not the recording can be accessed. We will post the recording to the plan amendment website, which you see here, and you can also find, if you have a phone, you can use it to scan the QR code, and the link from there will go to, we post all these videos on the Fairfax County's YouTube YouTube site. So there'll be a link to the YouTube video within the next day or two. So hopefully by Monday, late Monday afternoon at the latest, the video can be accessed. So, and I see we have another hand raised now from Brian.
Yes, Brian Zelli again here. Just if you could go back to the map, the neighborhood map that was up a few minutes ago. I'm just curious how this project will kind of interface what I call Old Merrifield, or the area just to the east of the project, specifically right at Merrifield Avenue, not the new extension, but the existing Merrifield Avenue and Door Avenue. There's a large kind of two rectangle buildings there. It's basically a waste facility run by Waste Management. All day long, trucks come in, recycling trucks, they pick up stuff on the street, they tip waste into that building, and then later massive trucks carry, you know, the waste in the other direction out. It kind of serves as an indoor landfill. I recognize that it's, you know, mostly recyclables, but that whole area, it's just full of a lot of stuff goes down the drain. It's a big rats around there. That building keeps on burning, catching on fire. I think right now it's offline due to the latest fire a couple months ago. I just can't imagine having a park right across the street from a waste facility, plus all the steady stream of trucks coming in and out of there, you know, many an hour when that is up and running. Since it's zoned as a warehouse and not as an industrial waste facility, I'm even curious how that building is allowed to operate at all, but kind of curious about how your thoughts about how having neighbors adjacent to a residential area where you're trying to build mixed use, open spaces, park area with townhouses, how that will all work out across the same street. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take a shot at that, Brian, because it's frankly an issue that we've discussed with staff over the last several months as we've been going through this process. Because I mean, let's face it, right now Merrifield is one thing, although, you know, we are looking to the future, right? You know, we are looking, you know, we have an opportunity, as I mentioned at the beginning, to just do something unique on this western edge. And what we hope will happen is it kind of sets the tone for what will happen in the future. I don't know if any of you guys have been following the site-specific plan nominations that came in the most recent cycle at the beginning of this year, but there have actually been, just in the last 6 months or so, a handful of the parcels along Door Avenue, the waste transfer station, I don't think is one of them, Brian, but a handful of those parcels are coming in with plan nominations of their own, seeing that Merrifield is kind of changing in real time, both, near the metro and now on our site on the western edge. And so you're correct that, there are certain patches of industrial uses, heavier industrial uses, like the transfer station in the current condition. But I think one of the cool things about this planning exercise is it's a long range plan, and we're trying to anticipate and plan for what's going to happen in the future. And so one of the things we've talked about with staff as we've been going through this plan amendment process, and will continue as we get into the rezoning, is how to provide an adequate buffer along that eastern edge. One of the things you might notice in that plan that was just had up on the screen is that the end units of those townhome sticks on the eastern side of our property land boundary face to the east. And that was intentional so that you don't have front doors or even back doors and back decks facing those existing uses, understanding that it's likely that at some point in the future they'll redevelop, but at least right now in the existing condition for the foreseeable future, perhaps those existing uses, industrial uses, will continue to remain. But I think, EYA, Link Logistics, like I said, they're planning for the future. We're planning for, the future of Merrifield, in which a lot of these parcels might or very likely are to redevelop in the future.
Yeah, and Bob, I think, with our, 41-acre application coming in, like I believe that's why you saw, I think the number may be seven additional parcels that have nominations that came in this cycle. And when we brought 41 acres and Link did, kind of to the table, that vision of what Merrifield could be, what this portion of Merrifield could be, started becoming a reality for those smaller parcel owners and holders, where they wouldn't have typically come in individually in the middle of, surrounded by these industrial buildings or small commercial buildings, come in on their own for some sort of redevelopment. Now that a huge piece of this puzzle is out in front of people and seeing what it can be, not only are you seeing new nominations come in, but I think you'll continue to see that where appropriate, in these areas. And so, to Bob's point, like, there is the long-term vision here, and that's what we're teaming up with our partners with county staff and even with you as the neighbors on to look at this long-term vision and the goal there. So it's exciting that we're thrilled to be a part of it, and we believe that the vision that the county's laid out through the comprehensive plan is it's a good time for that to start coming to reality. And there was a new. Oh, sorry, Steve, I was
just to add from the county's perspective, as Bob indicated too, that concern, not so much for the waste management site specifically, but that concern with the need for having an appropriate transition from residential uses to the industrial uses to the east came up early in the conversation as a concern for county staff also. And one of the ways that they've addressed it, as Bob has indicated, is by turning the sides of those townhomes to that eastern side. And even in thinking about the future potential for redevelopment, if there were newer buildings that aren't industrial in nature, we had a question about what happens if you have these townhomes adjacent to sites where building heights are allowed by the comprehensive plan currently to go up to 135 or 115 feet in height next to your 55 foot tall townhomes. And one of the ways that they responded to that was providing us with a shadow study that showed that kind of shows that there are some impacts of shadowing. There would be some impacts of shadowing from taller buildings to the east of those townhomes, but only for a shortened period of the day. But those are all those issues of compatibility between townhomes that would be directly to industrial uses or directly adjacent to taller buildings is something that the county has expressed concern about too and had them address. So.
All right, thank you so much for answering my question. And again, I've always wondered if that's a heavy industrial waste use, if that's even compatible with the existing warehouse zoning that parcel sits on that I was talking about. But thank you for addressing that.
Yeah, and we could definitely put that question to our counterparts in zoning also to just to see how it's determined that was an appropriate site, especially with understanding the idea that Merrifield is the long range vision for Merrifield has become this vibrant mixed use area.
Yeah, especially with the occasional fires that that facility seems to have, most recently in April, I believe. Thanks again.
Thank you. It looks like Mr. Coakley has another question.
No, I just really want to make a comment, which was to Brian's point, was, when you have to go back to see the history of this community, and all the changes. I mean, originally where the Mosaic District was, I mean, we didn't know the Cox antenna that is on that area, we thought that was going to be a huge stumbling block for development. And yet we've been able to make a successful development around it. All these particular sites, you have to incentivize the development for those things to be able to change. Some of these particular uses have been grandfathered in, from, before, we even had the beginnings of this task force. So those are just part of the the background and what we're looking to be able to develop and change. So I'm sure we know that the county is relooking at this whole quadrant to be able to see what other things are appropriate to be able to make economic viability for some of the development in the areas, whether or not we need to give more density, whether or not we have to look at less consolidation of parcels to be able to have a project move forward. I agree that the development of this 41-acre parcel is going to stimulate development and make changes. And as in any development, when you have these particular issues or new problems, we work as a community to make them to address them and make things safe for members of the community. So I just ask for some patience because I know that the county staff will be working with all the members involved to try to come to solutions and to make these things work. But this is what you see when you create a development, and it's we're right now, you're at the 30-year mark, where you started this whole development process. And, we've had huge success, but there's still, a long way to go. So I just want, Brian, to kind of hear some of the background and understand why, you have some of the uses like this, in the area, and to also see that, these issues, tend to rectify themselves over time.
Jim, no, thanks for that. Totally agree. I totally agree with that. I would also point out this entire 41 acres, including the Prosperity Avenue extension that it sits on, was a farm until about 1980. We're not going back to plant soybeans and wheat, but I like to see that this development of existing uses that may be underperforming land uses can be upgraded to the what this proponent is trying to do here. So great comments.
All right, thank you all. I think there was just one other question that about whether condominiums would be included in the multifamily, and from the county standpoint, we don't really differentiate between condominiums and apartment units at the planning level. We just consider them to be multifamily, and especially when it comes to the comprehensive plan, that umbrella includes either or condominiums or apartments, and even independent living and things of that nature can fall into that multifamily category. And I think Jason answered the height question a few minutes ago, but the multifamily buildings are planned to be 7 stories and up to 85 feet in height, and then the townhomes are
4 stories and 55 feet.
4 stories and 55 feet. Thanks, Jason. So
Yeah, the thought is these would be apartment buildings, but the multifamily world is it's been tough over the last few years, and it constantly kind of ebbs and flows. And so as we get into the details of CDP, FDP, and rezoning this property, you know, we'll certainly have our options open, but we'll you know, there's the possibility that our thought process on apartments today could change as we move forward, and we'll keep folks apprised of where that is. But I think the kind of scale, the density, the intensity, the stuff Steve talked about earlier, and that height, you know, that will remain, and it's a matter of, you know, what use fits within that within the multifamily spectrum.
all right, thanks, Jason. And with that, I don't see any more hands raised, and I don't think I see any. I don't see any more questions. So it's getting close to 9 o'clock, so we can. I think we're good with closing out tonight. But please remember, if you have any more comments or questions, please feel free to send them to me at stephen.waller@fairfaxcounty.gov. And we also have a slide here showing Jason's information and his colleagues with EYA. We discuss issues and resolutions all the time. And if I see something that needs to be shared with them, I'll share it with them. And if they see something from you that needs to be shared with county staff, they will also share it with us. So again, we thank you all for your time, and very great questions, and for giving us a listen tonight. So
yeah, thank you, Steve and Tom, for your roles, and we want to thank everybody as well for just being active participants in not just this project, but in the community. We're excited to be a part of that with you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jason.
Everything Jason said. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
All right, have a good evening.